The alarm bells rang through the corridors of the massive hospital ship UHMS Nightingale as it moved through the dark space between stars. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, his weathered hands gripping the command rail as he watched the tactical display. The ship was 3 days out from Earth and heading toward the Kepler 442 system, where thousands of people needed help. "Status report," Jake said to his bridge crew. The Nightingale was not like other ships in the human fleet. It carried no weapons, no armor plating, and no soldiers. Instead, it held over 3,000 doctors, nurses, and medical technicians ready to save lives wherever they were needed. Lieutenant Commander Alex Thompson looked up from his station. "All systems running smooth, Captain. We're maintaining course and speed. Should reach the Kepler system in 6 hours." Alex had served on warships before joining the medical corps. He understood the dangers of space, but he also believed in the mission. Dr. Lisa Carter walked onto the bridge, her medical uniform clean and pressed despite the long hours she had been working. She was the chief medical officer and had spent the last 2 days preparing her teams for what they would find. "Captain, we need to talk about what we're heading into." Jake turned to face her. Lisa was one of the best doctors in human space, and she had volunteered for this mission even though it meant leaving her safe position at the medical center on Mars. "What's the situation, Doctor?" "The reports from Kepler 442 are worse than we thought," Lisa said, pulling up a datapad. "The plague has spread to all 3 colonies in the system. We're looking at over 50,000 infected people from multiple species: humans, saurians, Zephyrians, and others." Alex frowned. "Multiple species? That's unusual for a disease outbreak." "That's what worries me," Lisa replied. "Whatever this plague is, it doesn't care what species you are, it just kills. The death rate is over 60% and it's spreading fast." Jake nodded. "How long do we have to help them?" "Based on the infection rate, maybe 2 weeks before. The colonies are completely wiped out," Lisa said. "We're their only hope." The ship's AI system, which the crew had nicknamed Helen, spoke through the communication system. "Captain Morrison, incoming transmission from Earth Command." "Put it through," Jake said. Admiral Susan Hayes appeared on the main screen. She was sitting in her office at Luna Station, and Jake could see the concern in her eyes. "Captain Morrison, I'm sure Dr. Carter has briefed you on the situation at Kepler 442. "Yes, Admiral. We're ready to help however we can." "Good. But I need to stress something important. Intelligence reports suggest there may be hostile forces in that region. The Vorthon Empire has been expanding their territory, and they don't always respect medical missions." Alex stepped forward. "Admiral, should we request a military escort?" Admiral Hayes shook her head. "All our combat ships are tied up with Border Patrol. The Nightingale will have to go in alone. But remember, you're protected under the Galactic Medical Accords. Any attack on a hospital ship is considered a war crime." "Understood, Admiral," Jake said. "We'll be careful." The transmission ended, and Jake turned back to his crew. "You heard the Admiral. We stay alert, but we do our job. There are people dying out there who need our help." Dr. Lisa Carter spent the next few hours moving through the medical bays, checking on her teams and making sure everything was ready. The Nightingale was like a floating city of healing. It had 30 operating rooms, 200 patient beds, and medical equipment that could treat almost any injury or disease known to science. In Medical Bay 7, Dr. Carter found Nurse Jenny, Walsh preparing supplies for pediatric care. Jenny had worked with alien children before and knew how to handle the different species they might encounter. "How are we looking for the little ones?" Lisa asked. "We're ready," Jenny replied. "I've got medical supplies set up for Saurian children, Zephyrian young, and human kids. Whatever this plague is doing to them, we'll be able to help," Dr. Carter smiled. Jenny was one of the best pediatric nurses in the fleet, and she had a way of making scared children feel safe, no matter what species they were. In the main communications center, Lieutenant Commander Alex Thompson was monitoring radio traffic from the Kepler system. The messages they were receiving painted a grim picture. Families begging for help, colony governors sending out desperate pleas, and medical personnel on the ground reporting that they were running out of supplies. "Captain," Alex called out over the ship's intercom, I'm picking up a transmission from the Saurian colony on Kepler 442b. They're requesting immediate medical assistance for their children's hospital. Jake's voice came back immediately. Tell them we're 6 hours out and to hold on. Help is coming. The Nightingale continued its journey through space, its hull clearly marked with the red cross symbol that identified it as a medical vessel. The ship broadcast its humanitarian mission on all radio frequencies, following every protocol established by the Galactic Medical Accords. As they approached the Kepler system, the crew could see the 3 colonies spread across 2 planets and a large space station. Each colony was home to different species, but the plague had reached them all. The space around the colonies was filled with small ships carrying refugees who were trying to escape the disease. "My God," whispered Alex as he looked at the scanner readings. "There are thousands of ships out there, all of them packed with families running from the plague." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge and watched the display. This was why he had joined the Medical Corps after 20 years in the regular Navy. This was why ships like the Nightingale existed. When disaster struck, when disease threatened to wipe out entire populations, humanity responded with healing instead of weapons. "All hands. This is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "We've reached the Kepler system. I can see the people who need our help. They're counting on us to do what we do best, save lives. Let's get to work." Dr. Lisa Carter was already moving toward the medical bays, her teams ready to receive the first patients. The Nightingale had come to bring hope to a dying system, and everyone aboard was ready to do whatever it took to save as many lives as possible. The medical bays of the UHMS Nightingale buzzed with activity as Dr. Lisa Carter and her teams worked to save lives. They had been in the Kepler system for 12 hours, and patients were arriving constantly from the 3 infected colonies. The plague was worse than anyone had expected. In Medical Bay 5, Dr. Carter knelt beside a small Saurian child who was fighting for her life. The little girl's scales had turned a sickly gray color, and her breathing was shallow. Her mother, a tall Saurian female named Kess, held her daughter's hand and looked at Dr. Carter with desperate eyes. "Please," Kess whispered in broken English, "save my daughter. She is all I have left." Dr. Carter injected the child with a new medicine her team had developed. "We're going to do everything we can," she promised. The medicine was experimental, but it was the best hope they had against this plague. Across the medical bay, Nurse Jenny Walsh was treating 3 Zephyrian children whose insect-like bodies were covered with the strange lesions caused by the disease. The Zephyrians communicated through clicking sounds, and Jenny had learned enough of their language to comfort them while she worked. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the medical bays, seeing the suffering firsthand. Human colonists lay in beds next to alien refugees, all fighting the same deadly disease. This was what the Nightingale was built for, bringing hope to the hopeless and healing to those who needed it most. "Captain," Lieutenant Commander Alex Thompson called over the intercom. "We have incoming ships on long-range sensors, multiple contacts moving fast." Jake hurried to the bridge. The tactical display showed 6 large ships approaching their position. The ships were sleek and angular, with the distinctive design of Vorthan warships. Jake felt his stomach tighten. The Vorthans were known throughout the galaxy as aggressive warriors who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. "Are they responding to our medical broadcasts?" Jake asked. Alex shook his head. "No, sir. They're maintaining radio silence. But their approach vector suggests they're not here to help with the medical emergency." On the lead Vorthan ship, Admiral Krex stood on his command deck and studied the human vessel through the view screen. The Vorthan was tall and muscular, with gray skin and yellow eyes that showed no mercy. His species had conquered dozens of worlds through military force, and they had little respect for what they saw as human weakness. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "the human ship is broadcasting medical emergency codes. It appears to be some kind of hospital ship." Admiral Krex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. A hospital ship, how typical of the soft humans. They waste resources on healing instead of conquest. He had been watching human expansion into this region of space, and he believed it was time to send a message about Vorthan's superiority. Shall we contact them, Admiral? Asked his communications officer. No, Krex replied. The humans need to learn that their weakness has consequences. Charge weapons. Back on the Nightingale, Captain Jake Morrison was trying to establish communication with the Vorthen fleet. Vorthen vessels, this is Captain Morrison of the United Human Medical Ship Nightingale. We are conducting humanitarian operations under the protection of the Galactic Medical Accords. Please state your intentions. There was no response. The Vorthen ships continued to approach, and their weapon systems were powering up. Dr. Lisa Carter was in the middle of delicate surgery on a human colonist when the ship's alarm system activated. The red lights began flashing, and she could hear Captain Morrison's voice over the intercom, announcing a potential threat. But she couldn't stop now. Her patient would die if she left the operating table. Jenny, she called to Nurse Walsh, who was assisting with the surgery. No matter what happens, we keep working. These people need us. On the bridge, Alex Thompson was monitoring the approaching ships with growing concern. Captain, the Vorthens are not responding to any of our communications. Their weapons are charged and they're moving into attack formation. Jake activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We have Vorthon warships approaching our position. As a medical vessel, we are protected under interstellar law, but I want everyone to be ready for emergency procedures. Continue your medical operations. Our patients need us now more than ever. The Nightingale had minimal shields and no weapons. It was designed to heal, not to fight. Jake had served on warships before taking command of the hospital ship, and he knew they were defenseless against a military attack. Admiral Krex watched the human ship through his view screen. He could see the medical symbols painted on its hull and the small shuttles carrying patients to and from the colonies. To him, this display of compassion was a sign of weakness that needed to be eliminated. Target their main medical bay, he ordered his weapons officer. I want to send a message that will echo throughout human space. The weapons officer hesitated. Admiral, attacking a hospital ship is against galactic law. It could cause... Krex's yellow eyes blazed with anger. I am the law in this system. Fire when ready. The first plasma torpedo struck the Nightingale without warning. The explosion tore through the ship's hull and destroyed Medical Bay 3, where 15 patients were receiving treatment. The ship shuddered under the impact and emergency alarms began wailing throughout the corridors. Dr. Carter was thrown against the wall of the operating room as the ship was hit. She struggled to her feet and saw that her patient was still alive, on the table. We have to keep going, she told Jenny, even as she could hear explosions echoing through the ship. More torpedoes struck the Nightingale. The hospital ship's weak shields failed completely, and fires broke out in several sections. In Medical Bay 7, where Dr. Carter had been treating the Saurian child, the ceiling collapsed. Kess screamed as she tried to protect her daughter from the falling debris. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge as his ship died around him. He activated the emergency recorder and began transmitting to Earth Command. This is Captain Morrison of the UHMS Nightingale. We are under attack by Vorthen forces while conducting medical operations. They have fired on a hospital ship. Repeat. They have attacked a medical vessel protected under galactic law. Another explosion rocked the ship. The bridge lost power, and Jake could hear the hull breaking apart. He continued his transmission, knowing it might be the last message Earth would receive from his crew. They attacked a hospital ship. They killed doctors, nurses, and patients. Remember us. The final torpedo struck the Nightingale's reactor core. The explosion could be seen from all 3 colonies as the great medical ship that had come to save them was destroyed. Over 3,000 people who had dedicated their lives to healing others died in space, along with hundreds of patients they had been trying to save. Admiral Krex watched the destruction with satisfaction. Let this be a lesson to the humans, he told his crew. Weakness will not be tolerated in Vorthen space. But as the wreckage of the Nightingale drifted through space, the Admiral had no idea what he had just unleashed. The attack on the hospital ship would be remembered throughout human space, and Earth's response would change the galaxy forever. Admiral Susan Hayes stood in her office at Luna Station, staring out at the busy spaceports below. Ships moved constantly between Earth and its colonies, carrying supplies, people, and messages across human space. But today, everything felt different. Today, everything had changed. The emergency transmission from Captain Jake Morrison played on her desk screen for the 5th time. She watched his final moments, heard his last words about the attack on the Nightingale, and felt something cold and hard growing in her chest. Susan had been a military officer for 30 years and she had seen war before, but this was different. This was an attack on healers. Her aide, Commander Pete Davis, knocked on the door and entered. "Admiral, President Foster is ready for the emergency council meeting." Susan nodded and followed him to the secure conference room. President Daniel Foster was already there, along with the heads of every major department in the human government. The mood in the room was dark and angry. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Foster began, "you've all seen the transmission from the Nightingale. The Vorthons have attacked and destroyed a hospital ship engaged in humanitarian operations. Over 3,000 medical personnel are dead, along with hundreds of patients they were treating." Secretary of Defense Karen Williams spoke first. "Mr. President, this is a clear violation of the Galactic Medical Accords. Every species in known space recognizes the protection of medical vessels." "The Vorthons don't care about galactic law," Admiral Hayes said, her voice hard. "They see our compassion as weakness. They think we're too soft to fight back." "President," Foster looked around the room, "the question before us is simple. How do we respond to this attack?" General Robert Clark, head of the Colonial Marines, leaned forward. "Mr. President, there's only one response to this kind of brutality. We go to war." The room fell silent. Humanity had been involved in small conflicts before, but never a full-scale war against an alien species. The implications were enormous. "War declaration requires a vote," President Foster said. "All in favor?" Every hand in the room went up. The vote was unanimous. Dr. Richard Stone sat in his office at the Human Medical Corps headquarters on Earth, reading the names of the dead from the Nightingale. Lisa Carter had been his closest friend in medical school. They had worked together for 15 years, saving lives across human space. Now she was gone, killed while trying to heal a sick child. His secretary knocked and entered. "Dr. Stone, the President wants you to address the United Nations Security Council tomorrow." Richard nodded. He had something to say to the galaxy, and the UN would be the perfect place to say it. The next day, Dr. Stone stood before the assembled delegates from across human space. Representatives from every colony, every space station, and every ship in the fleet watched as he began to speak. "My friends," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the great hall. "Yesterday we lost more than a ship. We lost 3,000 people who dedicated their lives to healing others. Dr. Lisa Carter was operating on a sick child when the Vorthons killed her. Nurse Jenny Walsh was comforting frightened patients when she died. Captain Jake Morrison was trying to save refugees when his ship was destroyed." The hall was completely silent. Richard continued, his voice growing stronger. "They killed healers. They murdered the innocent. They have forgotten that those who dedicate their lives to preserving life are protected by those who dedicate their lives to ending it." The applause was thunderous. When it finally died down, Richard delivered his final words. "The Nightingale is gone, but her mission continues. And now that mission has the full protection of the human military. No one attacks our healers and lives to tell about it." Admiral Hayes returned to her command center and activated a series of classified protocols that had been prepared years earlier but never used. Operation Nightingale Protocol was humanity's contingency plan for exactly this situation. A complete mobilization of human resources for total war. Within hours, every hospital ship in human space received recall orders. Trade vessels were ordered back to Earth. Diplomatic missions were canceled. All civilian traffic between human colonies stopped. To the galaxy, it looked like humanity was retreating in fear. They were wrong. Commander Lisa Park, head of human intelligence, briefed Admiral Hayes on Vorthon military capabilities. "Admiral, they have approximately 200 combat ships spread across 12 systems. Their technology is good but not better than ours. Their weakness is overconfidence." "What about their homeworld?" Admiral Hayes asked. Heavily defended, but they're not expecting a major attack. Intelligence suggests they think humans are too weak for serious military action. Admiral Hayes smiled coldly. They're about to learn otherwise. Across human space, the great industrial machine that had built hospital ships and medical equipment began retooling for war. Factories that produced medical scanners started making targeting computers. Shipyards that built passenger vessels began constructing warships. The same engineering brilliance that created life-saving technology was now focused on ending lives. Captain Ryan Bell had been a medical transport pilot before the attack on the Nightingale. He had spent 5 years ferrying doctors and supplies to colonies that needed help. Now he stood in a military briefing room looking at the blueprints for humanity's new Vengeance-class destroyers. "Captain Bell," Admiral Hayes said, "I'm offering you command of the first ship off the production line, the UHS Retribution." Ryan looked at the ship designs. These were not the clean, peaceful vessels he was used to. These were weapons of war, built for one purpose, destroying the enemy. "What about the crew?" he asked. "Volunteers only. People who want to make the Vorthons pay for what they did to the Nightingale." Ryan nodded. "I'll take it. When do we launch?" 6 months. "But when we do launch, we're not going alone. We're building a fleet that will make the Vorthons regret the day they attacked healers." Colonel Maria Santos was training the new Human Strike Corps at a secret facility on Mars. These soldiers were different from regular Marines. They were being prepared specifically for war against the Vorthons, and their training reflected humanity's new attitude toward this enemy. "Remember," she told her troops, "the Vorthons think we're weak because we care about healing instead of killing. They're about to learn that the same species that builds hospitals can build weapons. The same people who save lives can take them." The soldiers nodded. Many of them had friends or family who served on medical ships. They had volunteered for this special unit because they wanted revenge for the Nightingale. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other alien species were beginning to notice humanity's strange behavior. The Saurian Republic, whose children had been killed on the Nightingale, quietly contacted human intelligence services and offered information about Vorthon military positions. The Galactic Trade Federation tried to arrange peace talks, but humanity's response was simple and direct. "We tried peace, we tried mercy, we tried healing, now we try war." Admiral Krex, still celebrating his victory over the human hospital ship, received intelligence reports about human military preparations. His advisors were concerned about the scale of the human response, but Krex dismissed their worries. "Let them build their little ships," he laughed. "Humans are healers, not warriors. They don't have the stomach for real war." His intelligence officer showed him pictures of the human shipyards working at full capacity. "Admiral, they're building a lot more than little ships. Our estimates suggest they're constructing over 300 warships." Krex waved dismissively. "Quantity does not make up for quality. When they come, we'll destroy them, just like we destroyed their precious hospital ship." But deep in human space, something was awakening that the galaxy had never seen before. The same compassion that drove humans to build hospital ships was now driving them to build instruments of war. The same dedication that made them heal the sick was now focused on destroying those who had killed healers. Earth was preparing to show the galaxy what happened when someone attacked humanity's most sacred mission, the saving of lives. The response would be swift, overwhelming, and utterly without mercy. The Vorthons had awakened something they didn't understand, and they would soon learn the price of attacking those who could not defend themselves. 6 months after the destruction of the Nightingale, Captain Ryan Bell stood on the bridge of the UHS Retribution and watched the final preparations for launch. The ship was nothing like the peaceful medical transports he had commanded before. This was a weapon built for one purpose, making the Vorthons pay for their crime. The names of every person killed aboard the Nightingale were etched into a metal wall on the bridge. Dr. Lisa Carter's name was at the top, followed by Nurse Jenny Walsh, Captain Jake Morrison, and all the others. Ryan touched the wall every morning when he reported for duty. He would not forget why this ship existed. "Captain," his tactical officer, Lieutenant Kate Adams, called out, "Admiral Hayes is requesting a final status report." Ryan activated the communication system. Admiral, the Retribution is ready for combat operations. All systems are green. Crew is at full strength and weapons are loaded. Admiral Hayes appeared on the main screen from her command ship. Behind her, Ryan could see the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Over 300 warships filled the view screen, all bearing the names of medical personnel killed in various conflicts throughout human history. Excellent, Captain Bell. In 1 hour, we begin Operation Scalpel. The Vorthons are about to learn what happens when you attack healers. The plan was simple and brutal. 17 Vorthon military installations would be attacked simultaneously across their empire. Every major fleet base, command center, and weapons facility would be destroyed in the first wave. There would be no warnings, no demands for surrender, and no mercy. Colonel Maria Santos checked her equipment one final time as her transport ship approached Vorthon military base, Delta 7. Her Strike Corps team had trained for this moment for 6 months. They knew everything about Vorthon tactics, technology, and psychology. More importantly, they knew exactly how to hurt their enemy the most. "Remember the mission," she told her soldiers over the squad radio. "We eliminate every military target, capture any intelligence we can find, and make sure the Vorthons understand that this is payback for the Nightingale." Sergeant Mike Turner, her second in command, checked his weapon. "Colonel, what about Vorthon civilians?" "They're not our target," Maria replied. "We're here for their military. But anyone who gets in our way while we're avenging our doctors won't be shown mercy." On the Vorthon homeworld, Admiral Krex was reviewing reports from his intelligence officers about increased human activity near the border. The reports concerned some of his advisors, but Krex remained confident in Vorthon's superiority. "Admiral," his tactical officer Commander Vex said, "our deep space sensors are detecting a large human fleet moving toward Sector 7. It appears to be over 200 vessels." Krex laughed. "So the humans finally found their courage. How many ships are we talking about? 50? 100? "Sir, our count shows at least 300 warships plus support vessels. This is the largest fleet we've ever seen from any species." For the first time, Krex felt a slight worry, but he pushed it aside. "Impossible. Humans don't have that many warships. They waste their resources on hospital ships and peace missions." What Krex didn't understand was that humanity had built this fleet specifically to avenge the Nightingale. Every ship was new, every weapon was the most advanced human technology could produce, and every crew member was motivated by rage over the attack on their healers. The first attack came without warning. Captain Ryan Bell's Retribution dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly above Vorthon Fleet Base Omega-3. The base's defense grid had been designed to handle attacks from other Vorthon ships, not the overwhelming firepower that humanity had developed. "All weapons fire at will," Ryan commanded. The Retribution's main guns opened up, followed by a barrage of missiles that turned the base's shield generators into scrap metal. Across Vorthon space, 16 other human fleets were conducting identical attacks. Admiral Hayes had planned the operation like a surgical strike, quick, precise, and deadly. Every Vorthon military installation was hit at exactly the same time, preventing them from coordinating a defense. Commander Lisa Park watched the battle reports coming in from her intelligence center on Earth. The attacks were going better than anyone had hoped. Vorthon defenses were crumbling under the human assault, and their military leadership was in complete chaos. "Admiral Hayes," she reported over the secure channel, "all primary targets are under attack. Vorthon military communications are breaking down, and their fleet commanders are requesting emergency reinforcements that don't exist." Admiral Hayes smiled grimly. "Good. Phase 2 begins in 30 minutes. Colonel Maria Santos and her Strike Corps team had taken control of Vorthon Base Delta 7 after a brief but violent battle. The Vorthon soldiers had fought hard, but they were not prepared for the fury of humans seeking revenge for murdered healers. "Colonel," Sergeant Turner reported, "we've secured the command center and captured their base commander. Intelligence. Files are intact." Maria looked at the Vorthon officer who had been brought before her. He was wounded but alive, his yellow eyes showing fear for the first time. "I am Colonel Santos of the Human Strike Corps. Your forces attacked and destroyed a hospital ship called the Nightingale. Do you know what that was? The Vorthan commander said nothing. Maria continued, her voice cold and hard. It was a ship, full of doctors and nurses trying to save lives. Your Admiral Krex ordered it destroyed because he thought humans were weak. He was wrong. She turned to her communications officer. Send a message to all Vorthan frequencies. Tell them this base fell in 30 minutes. Tell them this is what happens when you kill healers. Tell them we're just getting started. Back on the Vorthan homeworld, Admiral Krex was receiving frantic reports from across his empire. Every major military installation was under attack, and the human forces were overwhelming his defenses with ease. How is this possible? He demanded. Humans are supposed to be weak. They build hospitals, not warships. His intelligence officer looked at the tactical display with growing horror. Admiral, it appears that the humans have been building this fleet specifically to attack us. Every ship appears to be new construction, and their weapons technology is more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Commander Vex stepped forward. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander, Admiral Susan Hayes, is requesting to speak with you directly. Krex's pride was wounded, but he needed to understand what was happening. Put her through. Admiral Hayes appeared on the main screen, standing on the bridge of her flagship. Behind her, Krex could see dozens of human warships moving in perfect formation. Her expression was cold and completely without mercy. Admiral Krex, she said, I am Admiral Susan Hayes of the Earth Defense Command. You attacked and destroyed the hospital ship Nightingale while it was conducting humanitarian operations. That was a mistake. Krex tried to maintain his composure. Admiral Hayes, the Vorthan Empire does not negotiate with— I'm not here to negotiate, Hayes interrupted. I'm here to deliver a message. The attack on the Nightingale killed 3,000 medical personnel who were trying to save lives. Our response is the complete destruction of your military forces. The screen showed tactical displays of the attacks happening across Vorthan space. 17 military bases were burning, their defenses shattered by human weapons. This is impossible, Krex said. You cannot have built this fleet so quickly. Admiral Hayes' expression grew even colder. We built this fleet for one purpose, to make you pay for killing healers. Every ship you see carries the name of someone murdered aboard the Nightingale. Every weapon we fire is fired in their memory. She leaned forward, and Krex could see the absolute determination in her eyes. You thought we were weak because we built hospitals instead of battleships. You were wrong. The same species that can build ships to save lives can build ships to end them. The same people who heal can also destroy. And right now, we're choosing to destroy you. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Krex staring at a blank screen as reports continued to pour in about the destruction of his military forces. For the first time in his life, the proud Vorthan warrior felt true fear. Humanity had awakened, and their response was more terrible than anything the galaxy had ever seen. 1 year after the destruction of the Nightingale, Admiral Susan Hayes stood on the bridge of her flagship as the human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel above the Vorthan homeworld. The sight that greeted the Vorthans was terrifying. Over 400 human warships filled space around their planet, each one bearing the name of a medical worker killed in the attack. The Vorthan home defense fleet tried to form up against the humans, but they were outnumbered 5-1. Admiral Krex, commanding from his fortress ship, looked at the tactical display and realized his empire was about to end. Admiral Hayes, he transmitted, I request a meeting to discuss terms of surrender. Hayes looked at his image on her screen, with cold eyes. There are no terms, Admiral Krex. You attacked healers. You killed doctors who were trying to save children. This is Earth's response. Captain Ryan Bell, commanding the retribution in the front line of the attack fleet, spoke into his ship's communication system. All hands, this is the captain. Today we finish what the Vorthans started when they destroyed the Nightingale. Every shot we fire is for Dr. Lisa Carter and the 3,000 medical personnel who died trying to help others. The battle for the Vorthan homeworld lasted 6 hours. The human fleet moved with precision and overwhelming force, destroying every military target they could find. Vorthan ships that tried to fight were destroyed quickly. Those that tried to run were hunted down and eliminated. Colonel Maria Santos led her strike corps in an assault on the main Vorthan military command center on the planet's surface. Her soldiers moved through the facility like avenging angels, capturing or destroying everything in their path. Remember, she told her troops over the radio, we're here for the military leadership that ordered the attack on our hospital ship. Make them understand the price of killing healers. The Vorthon. Defenders fought hard, but they were facing soldiers who had trained for a year with one goal, making the enemy pay for the Nightingale. The strike corps moved with skill and determination that the Vorthons had never seen before. Admiral Krex was captured alive, as his command ship was boarded by human Marines. Lieutenant Commander Kate Adams, Captain Bell's tactical officer, led the boarding party that found him hiding in his private quarters. Admiral Krex, she said, you're under arrest for war crimes, specifically the unprovoked attack on the hospital ship Nightingale. Krex tried to maintain his dignity. I am a warrior of the Vorthon Empire. I demand to be treated according to military law. Kate looked at him with disgust. You lost the right to military honor when you fired on doctors and nurses. You're nothing but a murderer. The trial of Admiral Krex was broadcast across the galaxy. Human prosecutors presented evidence of the unprovoked attack on the Nightingale, showing recordings of Captain Morrison's final transmission and the medical mission that had been destroyed. Dr. Richard Stone testified about the people who had died. Dr. Lisa Carter was operating on a sick child when your weapons killed her. Nurse Jenny Walsh was comforting frightened patients. These were healers, not soldiers. They died because you saw mercy as weakness. Krex's defense tried to argue that the attack was a legitimate military action, but the evidence was overwhelming. The Nightingale had been clearly marked as a medical vessel, broadcasting its humanitarian mission on all frequencies and carrying no weapons. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty of war crimes against medical personnel, the sentence was death. The execution was carried out on a human prison station, with representatives from every species that had lost people on the Nightingale watching. As Krex was led to his fate, he finally seemed to understand what he had unleashed. I never meant for this to happen, he said to the human guards. I thought you were weak. Commander Pete Davis, Admiral Hayes's aide, was present for the execution. We are not weak, he replied. We are healers. But when someone attacks our healers, we become something else entirely. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the most powerful military leader in Vorthon space was executed for attacking a hospital ship. The message was clear. Humanity would not tolerate attacks on medical personnel, but the humans were not finished. Dr. Richard Stone announced the construction of a new hospital ship to replace the Nightingale. The new vessel would be even larger and more advanced than the original, capable of treating twice as many patients. The Nightingale II will be crewed by volunteers from every species that lost people in the original attack, Dr. Stone said at the dedication ceremony. Humans, Saurians, Zephyrians, and others will work together to heal the sick and help the injured. Captain Sarah Mitchell, formerly a combat pilot, was chosen to command the new hospital ship. She stood before the assembled crew and spoke about their mission. We are not here for revenge, she said. We are here to heal. But the galaxy now knows that anyone who attacks healers will face the full force of human military power. We heal because we choose to. We fight when we have to. The Nightingale II began operations with a powerful escort, 12 human warships, dedicated to protecting medical vessels. The escort commander, Captain Bell, made it clear that these ships had one mission. We are here to ensure that what happened to the original Nightingale never happens again. Any species, any fleet, any individual who threatens a medical vessel will be destroyed without mercy. The Nightingale Accords were signed by every major power in the galaxy. The treaty placed all medical vessels under human protection, regardless of which species operated them. Any attack on a hospital ship would be considered an attack on humanity itself. Admiral Hayes spoke at the signing ceremony on Earth. The galaxy has learned that humanity's greatest strength is not our ability to make war, but our willingness to make war in defense of those who heal. We prefer to save lives, but we will take lives to protect those who save them. The Saurian Republic, grateful for human protection of medical missions, became humanity's closest ally. Their ambassador spoke at the ceremony about the children who had died on the original Nightingale. Humanity avenged our young ones who were killed while receiving medical care. They have shown the galaxy that healers are sacred, and those who protect healers are to be respected and feared. The Vorthon Empire collapsed completely after the war. Their remaining worlds were placed under galactic oversight, and their military was disbanded. The few surviving Vorthon leaders were forced to attend classes about the importance of medical neutrality. Years later, medical ships from every species in the galaxy carried the symbol of the nightingale, a dove carrying a medical cross. It became the universal sign for vessels engaged in humanitarian missions, and everyone knew what it meant. Attack this ship and face humanity's wrath. Dr. Stone, now elderly but still active in interstellar medicine, often visited the memorial, built where the original Nightingale had been destroyed. The memorial listed every person who had died in the attack, and it carried a simple message. They died healing others. We honor them by ensuring it never happens again. The galaxy had learned that humanity could be the most compassionate species in known space, building hospitals and saving lives across hundreds of worlds. But they had also learned that this same compassion could drive humanity to devastating war when their healers were threatened. No species had attacked a human medical vessel since the destruction of the Vorthon Empire. The lesson had been learned, written in the wreckage of warships and the ashes of military bases across Vorthon space. Humanity healed because they chose to. They destroyed when they had to. And the galaxy remembered both truths with equal respect and fear. The Nightingale would never be forgotten, and its mission would continue forever under the protection of those who understood that healers must be defended by warriors.